I think the biggest issue we have right now in the industry is the subcontractor trades. There are not enough people who are service-oriented business people going into the trades. I think there's not enough kids maybe coming out of school who really realize the opportunities that they can make a lot of money, they can provide a really valuable service. I think there's something about consistency of like building a business literally brick by brick, like seeing every quarter like doing better than the prior quarter. And it wasn't like one of these kind of like hockey stick type growth. It was slow, it was steady, it was consistent. And then there's these exciting periods where you're growing very fast, you're hiring very quickly, and training people, and it's exciting. But it was still kind of maintaining a reputation, building a brand that you're proud of.
Hi, I'm Bryan Wish, and welcome back to the One Away Show. Today's guest is Adam Mopsick, entrepreneur, founder, and former construction industry exec, who made the bold decision to leave the company he helped build in order to rediscover a sense of purpose and alignment. In this episode, we talk about the personal cost of burnout, the decision to start over when it would have been easier to stay, and how Adam has come to define success, not just by what he builds, but how he feels while building it. Let's dive in. Adam, welcome to the One Away Show.
Thanks for having me, Brian.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for being here. I'm happy to do this with you. Besides you being a Florida grad, which we discussed in the last call, and me going to Georgia, I think this is going to go just fine. Yeah. So, Adam, what is the one away moment that you want to share with us today?
Well, I think it's I started my career as in the construction industry as a general contractor, and during the great financial crisis, I was looking for something different and started an adjacent business, similar industry, same industry, but similar kind of background of requirements in terms of just construction expertise, and started a construction owner representation business. And so I think kind of the moment for me was just recognizing an opportunity in the space that I was currently in and exploring that, which grew to be the bigger business, and kind of where I found a little bit more passion.
For those that maybe don't know the construction space intimately, can you maybe define what a construction representation business does?
Sure. Yeah. So obviously most people understand the regular construction process of, architecture, construction, et cetera, general contractors. Owner representation is outsourced project management, someone who represents the owner's interests. So we would really, in a kind of a construction org chart, sit at the top with the owner or directly below the owner and manage all aspects of the construction and development project. So almost like, if somebody was an outsourced director of construction or in-house, we would be kind of that outsource, that role.
No, very cool. And what, I guess my question, just for even more knowledge, why does the person who running that construction company, why can't they do that themselves internally? Why do they need to hire someone externally to handle that for them?
Most construction projects is the largest investment that somebody will ever make, even businesses, right? There's a very large spend. So whether you're building a house or expanding building 15 restaurants or building out an office or anything that's of large scale, most people just don't have either themselves or in-house the time or expertise to execute on that. And the risk is massive. I mean, there's, it's a multi-trillion-dollar industry. Projects often are delayed over budget or beyond schedule, and those costs are significant. So it's about having the right team in place and the right experts working alongside you to help manage it.
Interesting. Very cool. So, I think I've learned, I have a couple of friends actually in the last year or two, I've made that are really innovating in this space. I think I will put you in touch with one, but it seems like you said, it is $1 trillion very, very big industry, and there's opportunity in it. I think my question is for what do you see as the future opportunities in the construction industry? You're coming out of what you just did in selling your company, but like, where do you see the industry kind of going in this kind of next tranche with automation and the next steps?
It's an industry that's always delayed, right? It's always a little bit behind, in technology. So there's lots of opportunity for just streamline and efficiency. It's an incredibly inefficient industry. If you look at the way things are done, there's so many parts and pieces. There's so many decisions that need to get made. And the costs are really high. I think ultimately the costs are going to get to a point where they're so high that people are just going to have to find alternatives. And whether that's, building things prefab or modular or they're 3D printing homes now in certain markets, I think in Austin. And so there has to be ways to become more efficient in it or try. Because the old way is just so complicated. And anybody who's ever done a construction project, as you probably are aware, they always have problems, right? So that's an industry that I see that's massively ripe for some kind of disruption.
Totally. So I asked that question intentionally because I wanted to go back to when you were working on your company, when you were representing construction owners, right, and handling some of these larger scale projects for them. What were some of the main projects that you were doing, right? Like some of the things that you were doing consistently, repeatedly, or just kind of or custom. And then as you think about that from the future context of the question of like, as the industry unfolds further, kind of where do you think some of the things that you were doing up until you sold the company could create a lot of opportunity in the way, the industry is innovated as it moves forward? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so we built our business. You see a lot of these types of businesses that are very small, and I wanted to build a business that was a little bit more scalable. And so, construction, maybe in some ways it's like medicine, right? You've got, it's all kind of under the same category of construction, but there are specialties that people tend to follow. So we had a group that did, multifamily or high-end residential or, hospitality or restaurants specifically. So, we would have individual directors who would specialize in a certain market sector and then build a team under them, and they could really be efficient at doing that type of market sector really well. So that's how we were able to kind of grow and scale the business. I think anybody who's a generalist who kind of does everything, it's hard to do something really, really well unless you specialize in it every day.
So the projects that you're describing, it sounds like, these were long-term projects. Like these weren't things that you just did in a month or two, but
most construction projects, by the time you have some site selection, team identification, pre-design, permitting, and then the construction process itself. Yeah, you're right. They can take 3, 4, 5 years or longer. We did a lot of schools that were these large strategic master plans, and they were multi-phase, multi-year programs. So, there were programs that we were involved in for 8 to 10 years.
Wow, that's a long time. So it sounds like from you talked about, I want to kind of lean into this. You said most construction companies are a bit small. You said I wanted to build something a bit more scalable.
Most owner rep consulting companies are small. So there's some big, construction companies, general contracting firms, but some of them they're doing different things. They're building towers. They're specializing in a specific market space.
Got it. And so is what made your company maybe more scalable or bigger, did it have to do with the duration of these projects and like the size and scale of the projects you took on? Like what enabled maybe you to maybe build something bigger where others kind of stayed leaner and smaller?
So we're in Florida and there's a huge demand. So we never had really a demand issue. We wanted to be the best in our market and the best in class and be really customer centric, because a lot of businesses strive to do. A big issue is the supply side, is finding the right team, making sure you're delivering a consistent product that's customer centric. So we really focused a lot on our internal processes and training and operations and finding the right people, recruiting, retention, culture. Using software to help make things more efficient for our clients and our team, and just really having a great place to work. You see in the industry a lot of people who move around, and I wanted to work with people that I liked and create a place that I liked. The people I worked with, and likewise for them. So I think that's a big part of it. Is really getting the right team in place, because the demand was never an issue for us. We always had plenty of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard a lot of quotes or just people talking or experienced founders, and they have a good product, demand, I think that's constantly referring to the team, not having the right team in place being the reason they it's a make or break. And seems like you also learned that pretty clearly.
And as a representative of our clients, it's the first thing we ask when we hire a contractor. It's not just the firm, because you're not buying a product, you're buying a service, right? So how do you vet that out? And it's about who are you going to be paired with? Who is the team that you're going to have? So it's a big part of the vetting process, and it becomes a hyper local situation when you're really trying to understand who the players are, what are their references, how long have they been with those firms, what are similar projects they've finished.
Yeah, for sure. It makes total sense. Adam, you built your company, and am I saying it correctly? Amicon?
Yes.
It sounds like for more than 20 years. I mean, when you look at the journey that you went down in you're in this period of transition and figuring out what's next, but I'm sure you've had a lot of time to reflect on your experience building. What are some of the things that maybe you've taken away that are maybe less obvious lessons about things you've learned about yourself, things that you learned building that, not the typical run of the mill kind of founder lessons, but things that are true to you that maybe you look at and say, wow, like that's really interesting, or that I wasn't really expecting that. And how would you respond to that question?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I started my business, I was very young, I was 24, and I probably wasn't ready. Maybe I didn't have enough experience, but you don't know what you don't know. And so you kind of learn a lot of things. What I learned was just every aspect of business, right? So you really have to learn about, when you're a young entrepreneur, you have to learn about accounting, and you have to learn how to read contracts, and you have to learn how to do marketing, and kind of also developing your business as the internet was growing, and how to build a website, and all of those things that you kind of learn that maybe if you're in a bigger company, you get a little bit more siloed and just doing one thing. So I had this just kind of really wide and vast education about business. As I got older, I wanted to explore more studies and learn a little bit more on the business side of, taking courses and programs and things like that, educational, that I couldn't learn, from just being in business. Also, I find out, even you asked what I learned about myself, almost like this ADD that I think a lot of entrepreneurs have, that where you're able to kind of spin a lot of plates, but it helped me, right? It was actually in having a lot of different projects and a lot of different things going on, you're able to kind of change gears quite often. Even now I look at my screen, I've got 30 windows open, right? So it's like some people just work well in that type of an environment. And that's, so it kind of, I guess, served me in that sense of being able to touch a lot of things at one time.
Got it. Okay. Awesome. Yeah, I can relate a lot. I just did this. We're working with like a leadership coach, and he had me and a few leaders kind of do a disc assessment. And that was one of the things he shared, of spinning lots of plates and having a lot of things moving and kind of working in that environment. I think. I
don't know if it's the most efficient, right? Yeah, I don't know if it's the most efficient way to work, and I'm sure there's people who would say it's not, but it works for me, right? That's kind of and I've been able to label it more recently. I'm like, you know what? I probably have ADD. So.
Yeah. Sounds like I think a lot of us do. So it definitely is a superpower when channeled in the right way. Yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing kind of some of the kind of lessons and things that, you learned from, given the longevity of what you built, when you think about like what's ahead, right? When you think about Adam 2.0 in the world, what does that look like to you? Is that doubling down again on something where you have expertise? Is that I want to do something totally new? Like where's your ideation and thought process right now?
So that's what I think a lot about now. So I've exited my company. I've sold maybe within the last couple of years, and I've been out for less than a year. And I'm super excited. I mean, I heard, I think it was Sam Altman or someone said it's probably never been a better time to start a career than right now. So when I was first starting, we kind of had the internet was growing, and now we have this AI movement, which I think is just going to unlock so much potential for all different types of businesses. I don't think any business is going to look the same in 5 years or 10. And so how do you get in front of that wave of what's happening and what are the industries that are going to get completely upended? And so that's exciting to me to kind of look at those opportunities. Although, I have 30 years of experience in the construction industry and it's an industry worth staying in that needs a lot of help. That's not going anywhere, that still has growth. So it's how do you combine those opportunities of looking at an industry that you have a lot of experience in, and then looking at the new opportunities that are ahead, and how do you, take advantage of it?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think when you look at people who are successful, or when you just look at like investing and people who place bets, like it's counterintuitive. Like the thing that keeps coming up in some readings is like leverage and concentration. And when people kind of do both, they can create a lot of upside, even though it tells you leverage is bad and diversification is good. But it seems like, obviously I'm not saying you sell to invest and build wealth, but from a career perspective, it seems similar, right? When you can apply bets in areas that and really double down on things in a concentrated way. There's more upside. And it seems like you have a ton of relationships and knowledge expertise to really apply to this next generation of the construction industry at large.
Yeah, I think it takes a long time to become really competent at something, and why waste that, right? That experience, and how do you apply it and teach and mentor others? And there are things that I learned that didn't have to take as long, and I'd like to be able to help others so they don't have to take as long to learn certain things. So whatever I do, again, doesn't need to take. I don't have that many more decades of work life. So it's got to be faster. I have to learn from the mistakes that I made and be able to execute on them more efficiently.
Well, it's cool to hear how you're thinking about the next set of things. Adam, as you kind of look at where we are as let's say society at large, let's just say from America and kind of business perspective, how do you think, not just within construction and not even beyond technology, but how do you think the way in which we do business and the way in which you're thinking about starting what's ahead is going to be different, right, than what you've seen over the last 30 years? Like what are the inputs that maybe you're applying to the recipe as you go in this time that are maybe more non-negotiables than maybe what the 24-year-old Adam did when he first started? Does that make sense?
I'm not a tech expert, and I'm not living in the market that you are, but the use of AI has, even for myself, made me so much more thorough and so much more efficient. So if I have a concept or an idea, or I'm exploring or researching something, and I'm able to say, okay, what are things that I might not be thinking about? It just gives me such a broader perspective on things that I would have had to do a lot more groundwork to figure out before, right? In terms of consulting and asking other people, and this one to that one, to come up with a real great list of questions to ask in due diligence, et cetera. And what I think that does is it just makes people much more efficient, and you don't need as big of a team to operate. So all of those things lead to profitability and speed, and it's just so exciting. So I think a lot of things that I used to have to do I'm somebody who I like to get a lot of information before I make decisions, and now I can get that information faster, and more and deeper. So that to me is the most exciting thing, what I see going forward. Anybody who doesn't know how to leverage that is going to be left behind.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Similar to you, right? Even though I'm not even the biggest techie, but I've been using the tools for probably 50% of my stuff, right? And I think it's huge, and super helpful to have. Very cool. Adam, tell us a little bit about, maybe let's talk about, when you were building your first company, did you have like a family, kids, like as you were kind of doing that? Like maybe I'd love to kind of understand kind of the personal side of the business.
Sure. Yeah. I started my business when I was 24. I got married when I was 30 and, started having kids right away. And so now I have 3 boys. I'm still married for over 22 years, and 3 boys, 2 in college and 1 in high school. So it's hard. It's hard to balance everything when you're trying to, focus on doing everything well you're trying to build your business and focus on that, but you're really trying to be present as a parent and as a husband and trying to be, home as much as you can. So I don't know that there's one answer, but I know that there's the balance that you have to find. If we talk about work-life balance, and you just can't live on the extremes and be successful in any, you're giving up something by being too hard on one end of the spectrum.
And given that note, right, you're like, I could never be like 120% in on this extreme versus that extreme. Like what were things that you found that maybe, it sounds like it was messy and it was imperfect in all the ways, right? As it is for everyone. But what are things that maybe you found that worked for you to allow you to sustain a over 20 plus year partnership now, have kids kind of do that and keep on, building a business? Like what worked for you?
I think you have to focus on what's important all the time, right? Because there's always something to do. There's always something, as I got older, I got maybe more efficient with my time. So, where I used to, write these long email responses and things. And sometimes I'm like, that can wait, or I'll do a quick response. And you just become more efficient. You focus on the most important thing. And it's like, some of these things are cliche. You hear it all the time, but it's, at the end of the day, what do you remember? You remember those moments, you remember the emotions, the way things make you feel, and, being there with your family, not missing things, not missing the vacation, because you're never going to remember those things that you missed for. So it's kind of starting each year and then each week with what is the most important thing this week to try and focus on, and building everything around that. And you have to be flexible. It's hard, right? And sometimes something pops up. Oh, we have an event at the kids' school this week, and it wasn't on the schedule, and nobody told you. But it's hard. You have to do it.
Yeah, totally makes sense. It's I think a lot of entrepreneurs, in like our forum for EO. I know you're in YPO, but you hear everything. You hear everything you can't even think of. But I think it's.
I don't profess to be an expert. I don't give parenting advice. I don't give relationship advice. Everybody's got their own thing, right? But, the only thing I could say is what ultimately types of relationships do you want to have, and do your best towards striving to get there.
Yeah, totally. That's awesome. And then, let's say, you're very entrepreneurial, self-coined ADD. From raising a kid perspective, how much of it is were you focus on like kind of wanting your kids or boys to be kind of entrepreneurial versus like letting them be like who they were meant to be? Like how did you kind of bring them into what you were building, or kind of shield them from what you were building?
Some of it I think is, so I've seen especially in YPO a lot, and just being in business, you see people in situations where maybe there's a lot of pressure put on them to try to do something maybe they didn't want to do. And I didn't want to do that for my kids. And so it's more about exposing them to business, exposing them to other things. I'm still going to be here if they want to come around and ever, do something together. And there's no pressure from me personally to say, hey, this is an expectation of you that you need to come into a business. And I see that a lot. And I think it very rarely to what the success of of maybe that parent had done prior. And then they have to earn the respect of people in those companies when they come in and come through, right? So who are thinking maybe they were giving something that they didn't earn. So I just think it's a lot of pressure. And so I think that the biggest gift for anybody is to be able to succeed on your own. And I think for certainly for my kids or for myself or for friends of mine, it's like, if I dropped you in the middle of a place where you never didn't know anybody, and are you going to be able to be successful and figure things out? And I think that's a sign of somebody who can, to succeed and achieve anywhere. And some people can't, they kind of flounder. So I think that's what it takes to give some people confidence, is just kind of stacking these successes on top of each other. And I think you kind of have to learn that on your own.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Something you've, at least what I'm picking up is, I'm sure it's not always perfect, but you brought a pretty level-headed nature, and maybe rational way of kind of making decisions, and just kind of, maybe learned over the years, but, a way to handle things and bring in different inputs before you do make decisions, or kind of how you kind of live day to day. So sounds like that's a healthy way to go about life.
Yeah. And I want to have great relationships with my kids, and I want don't want to have other external pressures put on them that business can sometimes do. So, but again, I speak for myself, not, there's not one right answer for this. I think a lot of it depends on individuals and everybody's different.
So let's transition again back to the work side of things. You just sold the company. You are figuring out what's next. Let's say you had to make a decision tomorrow on like what you were going to do next in the construction space. Like, where would you kind of place your bets, or where would you really dive in, given kind of what you're seeing right now, and kind of where would you kind of put your intellectual capital?
So I think, as I said before, I think the industry is messy, and I think anything that is going to create efficiency and reduce risk in the industry. And I think there are some technologies that I'm exploring that I think they're going to be beneficial. I think ultimately clients and end users, whether they're businesses or consumers, individuals, they want to de-risk the process. They want more certainty in information. They want more, clear communication, and they'll do what they need to for that. So I'm focused on, how to create a better experience for people in the industry, whether that's through technology or through some kind of services, or, how to help clients have a cleaner, more stable construction experience. And I think anybody who, again, that you've talked to, it's like a lot of industries. If you have an industry that consistently gets a bad, most of the people who you talk to go through a construction experience, they don't often have a good experience, right? It's rare that you read, talk to somebody at the end, it's like, oh, it was under budget, it was on time, and the whole team was awesome. That happens, but not enough. And I think that, if I can help find ways to either by mentoring people in the industry to be a little bit more customer centric and maybe coming up with some opportunities to create more efficient experiences for clients, then I think maybe we're getting somewhere.
To build on what you said, it could be technology, but it could be service side. I mean, your Amicon was more service based. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And what, obviously a lot of technology is being applied to the industry. You've seen how inefficient it is, or maybe the bad rap, but there's always going to be a need for the human side, and the human side done well, even if maybe there's less people. What areas in the construction space right now do you think maybe more services companies could be built around to kind of serve different kind of sectors, if you had to start one again?
I think the biggest issue we have right now in the industry is the subcontractor trades. There are not enough people who are, service-oriented business people going into the trades. I think there's not enough kids maybe coming out of school who really realize the opportunities that they can make a lot of money. They can provide a really valuable service. Who maybe college isn't for everybody, and there's other vocational trades that people should be doing. But when your air conditioning breaks in South Florida in July, I mean, you're going to pay whatever. And there's just not enough companies, and I think a lot of construction companies are limited by their subcontractor pool, that they just don't find enough qualified subs. So I think that's a big part of it, right? And that's not going to change with any, there may be more efficiencies created through some technology, but it's still sticks and bricks that you're putting, how you're building buildings.
Interesting. So it sounds like creating more of a supply of trained, skilled contractors or subcontractors who can really handle, just the daily demands of, general contracting work. Is that?
Yeah, there's not enough people in the industry to serve the needs of the industry in my market. I mean, there may be other parts of the country, but certainly in Florida, there's just not enough. There's not enough quality people, and then it leads to delays, and it leads to poor service, and it leads to cost overruns. At the end of the day, you end up paying more. Clients end up paying more for worse service. So, I think, how do you find the best people? But everybody would benefit if there were more higher quality, subcontractors offering better service.
I mean, I have thoughts coming to mind, but if you had to solve that, tomorrow? Like, how would you go about solving for that problem?
I think the problem starts early in outreach to younger people and presenting them with the opportunities, and just presenting how much they could have an amazing career by exploring these opportunities that maybe they didn't know about. And, if you think about, again, in your experiences or anybody who may hear this, what are their experiences in talking to a subcontractor or someone who they need? Are they polished and professional and organized and detail oriented and good follow up with, a good technology app? The chances are probably no. They probably don't check all those boxes. And you think about, people coming out of school who could really, provide a big impact and service the industry in a way that just it hasn't been before. So I think that could have the biggest impact is touching on the youth as low as the high school level, of maybe starting them on a path where they can make a lot of money in this industry, and by just being professional and learning a trade.
I mean, I think you're right. I think we've placed as a society, I think, so much emphasis on maybe, I think it's hard to explain. Like some of the things we learn in school, like we're not even talking basic financial stuff in school. I mean, we're not taught everyday skills that were applied. I saw a Twitter thread or X thread the other day, and it was kind of like, as a new parent, like what's most important to teach my kids, and almost like kind of throwing out the playbook of like what we're teaching kids these days to like really prepare them for the future. And then clearly it'll be a conversation for centuries, but it sounds like this education needs to start much earlier, and this career path needs to be shown as a high value career path. Yeah,
and I'm convinced that this career path will still be here in 20 years and 30, 40 years, but there's a lot of paths that won't. And, and you just, it's hard to predict. A lot of jobs haven't been created yet that, maybe haven't started, but there's a lot of things I think we can look to and say that probably won't be the way things are done in 10 or 20 years, or if not 5. And so, anybody who's starting in something, I would urge them to look at, what is the longevity that you can see, as far as you can see, of that career path.
Yeah, it's like this is a bit of extreme. It's like you could 3D print every house in the world, but you can't 3D print everything that like breaks in that house. It's like you're always going to need people.
Yeah, there's still customization. Then you live in coastal areas. There's life safety issues and hurricanes and things that just that's probably not likely. I mean, maybe there's places where things can be done in that way.
Right. No, I was giving like an extreme in the sense like there's, regardless of technology advancements, like there's always going to be needs to like kind of fix things, build things, create.
Well, look, I think cost estimating is an example. I think that's something that can probably in the near term be automated. There's a lot of money that's spent on that. The permitting process things take so long because of how long the permitting process takes. If there's software that can scan plans for compliance and help expedite that process, that's a big, think about how long it's going to take right now to build all the damage in California. And a lot of that is going to be just because of their design and planning and permitting process.
Yeah, it's a nightmare from a couple combos that I've had. If you're a founder looking to grow without raising capital or giving up control, Relent is built for you. Founded by entrepreneurs who've scaled without outside funding, Relent helps companies find and retain talent, lower operational costs, and reinvest in growth. We've hired nearly 10 team members through Relent and streamlined our entire cost structure, freeing up capital to put toward what matters most. Even small teams can set up offshore operations quickly, compliantly, and without heavy infrastructure. With deep expertise in the India-US corridor, Relent combines cultural fluency with operational rigor and guides everything from team design to long-term scaling. Grow on your terms and start with Relent. To learn more, visit relent.team/arcbound. Adam, did you build houses growing up? Did you have like handy skills? Like, or was this,
I wouldn't call myself a handy person, but I did like, to be outside in physical labor. And I started doing, in high school, I was a construction laborer and, that sort of thing. But I'm not a fine finished, carpenter like some people and that sort of thing. I'm more lean towards the business side.
Yeah, very cool. Understood. At least you know where your strengths lie, right?
Yeah, no, you have to. If you don't figure those out, your weaknesses pretty early, you're not going good for it.
But maybe your next business is in the business of making more people handy. So it's a bit meta there, you know?
Maybe. It's a good thought.
There you go. I think we solved your next chapter.
I can recognize the problems for sure.
Yeah, there you go. Very cool. Adam, as you maybe look at this second mountain of life to you beyond business, like what's meaningful as well? Like as you're looking at this next chapter, like what are things that maybe you don't want to do, but maybe things that you want to do now that you sold the business, even if you're going to start something else, or like what's ahead in the life of Adam beyond work?
Well, I definitely would like to help younger, professionals and people who are in the space. And there was a time, certainly in my 30s and 40s, where I hadn't found YPO yet. There were things that I just was desperate for, different other types of education, advice, mentorship. And so if I can provide that or just help some people kind of find their path a little bit easier, I think that would be rewarding. So I definitely like sitting with, mentoring younger people either in my industry or not, and giving them advice if they take it. And sometimes I'll get thank you notes and texts, and it feels really good, to help somebody solve a problem that maybe they couldn't see clearly or they just needed to talk through. Yeah. So really helping others learn from maybe some of my mistakes.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, it's cool to see the human condition and experience kind of come full circle, and all the things that you experience, face, roadblocks someone else has solved, and to be able to help other people on that journey. It's can be super.
Yeah, and sometimes it's as simple as reaching out and asking the question. Maybe I didn't do that enough either, right? Of like, taking that person out to coffee and saying, hey, can I ask you for some advice? And so I'm maybe more, appreciative when someone asks me, definitely giving them the time.
Yeah, for sure. I like it. Very cool. Adam, I feel like we covered, a lot of ground. I feel like kind of what's ahead and to a degree or kind of have a focus, but is there anything I haven't asked you? Like, is there anything like you're like, hey, like we've talked on these different things, but maybe it'd be nice to kind of go down that alleyway. Does anything come to mind?
Look, there are things I definitely miss. People ask me all the time, do you miss your business? I definitely had a lot of identity tied into my business. It was 27 years, of building the brand, waking up every day and focusing, how do I build the best brand? And to lose that, I sold the business. But to not have that very, abruptly change was probably harder than I had anticipated it to be, like emotionally. And so it's about finding that next thing that gives you purpose, I guess, in terms of what you're doing, building a team, having something like that's a shared purpose with a group that I definitely would like to, find a way to get that again. And I think that's an important thing for any business that's successful. People have to kind of have a shared purpose and vision. Yeah. And I think it's part of the leader's responsibility to, kind of to set that vision as well and make sure everybody, shares in it.
Totally. I think it's only natural. I can't imagine kind of having something abruptly in that I've been building 6-7 years, and you pour everything into it, and you did that for almost 3-4 times the length that I.
Yeah, and look, and as much as I prepared for it, I knew it wasn't coming. It didn't happen overnight. Like I was, surprised to sell the business, but it's still, it's still an emotional kind of a little bit of a roller coaster that you go on and say, okay, this is a big change.
Totally. Have you had time, as you look at the last business beyond the sale and like what you built, like, what are you most proud about? Like, what are you most grateful for from that experience?
Look, I think there's something about, consistency of like building a business literally brick by brick, like seeing every quarter, like doing better than the prior quarter. And it wasn't like one of these kind of like hockey stick type growth. It was slow. It was steady. It was consistent. And then there's these exciting periods where you're growing very fast, you're hiring very quickly, and training people, and it's exciting. But it was still kind of maintaining a good reputation, building a brand that you're proud of, keeping your clients happy while keeping your team motivated and excited. It's very rewarding, all of it. I loved being in business. I love that about business. And, there's ups and downs. You win in a project, you lose something, but overall, the trajectory was up and to the right all the way, always, and there's something very exciting always about that.
Yeah. I mean, I think, something I'm respecting is when you see someone who's built a company that's taken more than 5 years. I mean, it just seems so rare. I mean, maybe because I'm younger, but people have kind of held on to companies for a long time versus just trying to like a flip quick, or a quick flip, right? And you build something up and just kind of sell it versus like someone, who's stable, building something very stabilized. And
I think it completes the loop a little bit, right? Like from cradle to grave, you kind of take something and prove to yourself that you can kind of take it through all those steps. And I enjoyed all of the steps. I enjoyed going through the sale process. I really, it was kind of like a sunset on something. And to build something that somebody else wants is rewarding also, that you can prove that you're, doing something that, somebody else values as well, in the industry. So it's validating as an entrepreneur, but, so maybe it didn't have to take as long, and, some of it is in your control. Some of it's not. There's market conditions, there's different timing, there's interest rates, there's COVID, there's all these different things that kind of are out of your control sometimes, but it's about staying focused on just keeping your reputation clean, keeping your brand protected. I mean, all of those things is kind of what you get up every day and try to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I really like your approach. I think it's a thoughtful approach to like building a company. It reminds me, like, if you had to write your principles for company building, I'm thinking like Ray Dalio's book, Principles, and kind of his principles for how he did build his company. I
read it.
But yeah, so no.
So we can all do a lot of things, right? I mean, there's not one thing that anybody can do. I think it's nobody wants to get up every day and not enjoy what they do and who they do it with, and you have one kind of, maybe you have multiple aspects of your career, but you're kind of going through this one time and make it the best experience you can. And that's part of it, is of owning your own business, of being an entrepreneur, is you get to kind of mold that a little bit. Or maybe you're at a company that you have influence over, that sort of thing. And I think that really is important, to help create the culture of the place that you want to be.
Totally. I mean, it seems like, everything you said, like the people part of it was so important to you, especially being on the service side. And, you built it, not slowly, but like you built it.
It has to be. You have to. And even as we were growing, I still wanted to have the last kind of opportunity to, vet people out as you're hiring them, because if you bring in mediocre people to your organization, at some point you end up with a mediocre company. And you want to have the best people, the smartest people, because they're going to get the experience. They're there long enough, they'll get the experience. And then you'll find that the people who have been with your business, your best employees, are the ones who have been with you the longest. They know you, they know your culture, they know how to do things the way you like, to do it. And so I always thought of finding the people that, had the most upside, and just worry about you'll get the experience along the way, right? But you're not going to get the right character if you don't start with it.
No, it makes sense. I mean, I just appreciate the way, the lessons that you shared today. I mean, both personally, about yourself, about the business, about kind of your industry insights. I really like your idea and kind of creating a better trade opportunity for the younger generation to build within your space. I think there's something there. So yeah, Adam, this has been an absolute joy of an interview, and appreciate you reflecting on your experiences with me. I'm super excited for what's ahead. So thank you for doing this with me today.
Thank you. Keep doing what you're doing. I think it's great that you get to talk to all these different people, and I'm sure it's awesome for you too.
Yeah, it's been a total treat, and very grateful. So Adam, where if people wanted to reach out, learn more about you, the construction space, where should they find you?
I still have my same website. It's amicon.us. It's Amicon Construction Services in Miami. And anybody can send me an email. It's adam@amicon.us. And I'm open to talk to anybody who wants to have a conversation about anything, business related or otherwise.
Amazing. Well, sounds
Especially I have a little more time.
Yes, absolutely. For sure. Well, I will, when we share this episode, we'll direct those people your way, and we'll go from there. So thanks for doing this.
Thank you. Thanks. I appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in to the One Away Show with Adam Mopsick. What I'll carry with me is Adam's clarity, the kind that only comes from letting go of comfort in order to pursue meaning. His story is proof that sometimes the bravest thing that you can do is step away from what you've built and trust there's something better on the other side. If this episode sparks something in you, pass it on to someone at a similar crossroads. And as always, we are back every Tuesday and Friday with more stories like this. Until next time, listen closely to the voice that says, there's more for you than this.